Greetings, everyone. Dennis Easter here. I have the privilege of being the interim pastor of the Pasadena Foursquare Church. And together in our community of faith, we are observing the Lenten season as a part of a larger story at our church called Pilgrimage. And in this Lenten season, which is typically dedicated to the 40 days leading up to Palm Sunday, we are positioning our hearts and our lives for the breakthrough that is associated with the resurrection of Jesus on Easter. Now, in this preparation, there's basically three elements that the church universally attends to. One is prayer, another one is fasting, and the third one is giving. I'm going to give my reflection today just on the giving part, because giving can really, truly be misunderstood in so many ways, and the ways it's misunderstood are not helpful for breakthrough. Let me talk about two of those ways that are not helpful. Giving when it's based out of guilt, or giving when it's based on greed. Yeah, guilt is that this is something I have to do, and if I don't do this, punishment is coming my way, lack, and etc. And while there are things about that are important to understand, guilt is a poor motivation for giving. It never brings about what Jesus said in Acts chapter 20, verse 35, it is more blessed to give than to receive. There isn't that sense of blessing with it. It's just this, I have to do it. It's almost like paying taxes, And then there's greed. Greed is when you hear the messages that when you are giving to the Lord, you're going to get back a hundredfold. And while the Lord promises those kinds of things in Scripture, greed is using God as a leverage, a kind of a Ponzi scheme, as it were, to somehow get wealthy off of my gifts to Him. Greed and guilt are not the motivations that make for breakthrough. I'll tell you one that is: gratitude. You see, when we are giving with a heart of gratitude, that's when something in our heart is being changed and preparing us to be people that God can trust with more. Yeah. And the more He gives you is not just for self-consumption. While it may bless you, it is really meant to serve the other. And so when I think of giving this season, I'm not thinking about the regular giving I'm doing. I'm thinking about those places where the Lord touches my heart when I see someone or I hear of something that is going on to help somebody deal with a crisis. You've seen it on different ways that happens on the social media. When you're walking down the street, you'll see people who are asking for assistance. You'll hear of it in your relationships with others that somebody's going through a crisis of a death or unexpected illness. And something immediately starts to pop inside of you that you would like to be a contributor to that. But along with that comes this sense of tightening of our hold on finances. And what it is rooted in the fear that if we give, we will lose. And if we give everything, of course, we're going to lose everything. But God is wanting to create a spirit of gratitude in our hearts, because gratitude is the beginning of a life that leads you to, get ready for this, generosity. See, when I am truly thankful for what God has done, I cannot be empty in my gratitude until it comes full circle to becoming generous. Gratitude should always lead to generosity. And that we get to trust God, who's summoning us to give, that hits His heart to share and bless the other. That's what I think is happening during the Lenten season, is that God is trying to sow a spirit of generosity in people. And the reason for it is kind of very cool, really. It's so that God can trust you with more. I think people who learn to live with a spirit of generosity are people that God can trust with greatness. Now, there's a passage of Scripture in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 that most all of us have heard. And it's a passage on sowing and reaping. And while it refers to all of giving, in particular, I just want to kind of pinpoint it on what it looks like when you're living in generosity. It talks about if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. But if you sow generously, you reap generously. In other words, that the sowing and reaping has a kind of a spiritual kind of a principle to it. So let me kind of unpack that in three ways. Number one, you always reap what you sow. So if you are sowing in a spirit of generosity, that generosity flows back to you, all right? So if I sow something, what I sow is what I reap. I don't reap something different. Secondly, Get ready for this. When you sow, you always reap later. Yeah, it doesn't happen immediately. There's not an immediate return. It's not like you make a deposit and you go down and see all this interest there. No, it's that it is over time building and coming back. The seed that you sown comes back as a harvest that's incredible, right? But it comes back later. So what you sow is what you reap. You sow, you reap later than when you sow. And I've already hinted at the third one is you reap more than you sow. See, generosity is getting us into that place where we're a part of this kingdom activity. And once again, it's not about self-consumption being the ultimate goal. It's about being somebody that God can trust with greatness because he knows you won't hold on to it, that you will serve as a conduit of his blessing to others. So this Lenten season, look for ways to be generous. When you hear of a need, think about how I can participate in answering to that. When you see someone in need, what might you do to be able to answer to that need? There's going to be plenty of opportunities for us this Lenten season for us to renew our hearts in gratitude that leads to generosity and knowing that we're the people that God can trust with greatness. Peace be with you.